posted by user Letterto Thief. Can't believe something like this happened to me. First of all, I want to state that I'm a logical guy, and a lot of weird stuff is coincidence, and I get that. Also, I understand that the following happened while I was drinking, and that may seem like it obscured my recollection. However, I'm in my mid-20s, and I've been drinking for longer than I'd like to admit, and I'm very sure that what I recalled from this evening is absolutely true, unless I suddenly lost my tolerance for alcohol or someone drugged me. Felt fine the next day, so I doubt that. Anyways, let's get on with it. I work for a small financial firm in Central Texas, and because we're small, our clients usually are too. We also tend to service more remote areas in Texas, because it's not worth the trouble for mid to large size firms. Border towns, the valley, etc. This job was in Laredo, and we were working out of an office in a very large industrial park right off of IH-35 South. You probably know which one if you're from Laredo. Tons of big rigs everywhere, and very busy during the day, but quiet at night. We wrapped the job quicker than normal, and as luck would have it, the office was taking holiday on Friday anyways, so Thursday evening my coworkers and I decided to sleep in a bit the next day to prepare for our drive back. Knowing I had time, I decided to walk to a sports bar half a mile away from our hotel and have a couple drinks. I was on a diet at the time, so a few Jack and Cokes got me feeling good, but not disoriented or drunk at all. I was really hungry and called an Uber to get some food. This was around 11:30 p.m. Now it's important to note that this sports bar was up the frontage road from the hotel, so to drive back, you'd have to go up to the next intersection, U-turn onto the southbound frontage round, then U-turn again and turn into the hotel, one-way frontage roads. Uber shows up, and I tell him in my broken-ass Spanish to drive around like he's taking me to the hotel so I can stop wherever I see there's a place to eat. We get to the other side of the highway and I see the long road that leads from the frontage road into the industrial park. Except this time, there's a small Mexican restaurant on the road. Taqueria something, I have no idea anymore. Weird, but okay. It's Laredo, I'm gonna get some good Mexican food. Uber drops me off, I order, only one there, and only one dude working, get my food, eat, then ask to use the restroom. I open the door, and holy shit, pun intended, it's a beautiful bathroom. Sounds weird, I know. But to go from a hole-in-the-wall restaurant interior to a bathroom with a granite countertop, new dual flush toilet, brand new tile, mirror, etc. It was such a juxtaposition. It was insanely clean and looked like they just remodeled it today. I used to do contracting work with my father and this was an expensive job, especially for a tiny restaurant. It just made no sense. So I wash up and pay, thank the guy and go outside to wait for the Uber back. Probably could have walked to the hotel but it was dark and sketchy. As soon as the Uber pulls up, I see all of the lights in the restaurant behind me shut off. Sign, interior, all of them. Like he was waiting for me to get a safe ride. Wake up the next morning, and we're heading out but we're dropping off a draft report at the client's mailbox. Take the whole frontage road route and turn onto the industrial park road ... and there's no fucking restaurant. On either side of the road is big grassy fields leading up to the beginning of industrial buildings, and it looks like there's pieces of a destroyed concrete foundation scattered in the grass on the side of the road where the restaurant was. I'm tripping out and my coworkers have no idea. We drop off the report in their mailbox and head out the same way we came in. Same thing, no restaurant. But this time, I see a shiny, brand new looking toilet dumped in the field, just like the one I saw the day before in the restaurant. I started at it until we got so far away I couldn't see it anymore. Posted by user, nanatives. My family drove through the same place at least 3 times, and repeated the same question 3 times. I've been in this sub for a while, but never paid much attention to it until I decided to read through a bunch of posts which inspired me to post this here. It happened last year when my family decided to go on vacation north of the country. We usually just stay where we live because it's super close to the beach. It's the southernmost point of our country, so the weather is always nice, therefore there really is no reason for us to travel a lot. However, last year one had made a friend that talked wonders about the north, so, through a lot of talking, I convinced them to go on a road trip and see the north of the country. The place we would be staying at was on the countryside, so we had to drive through some abandoned and very oddly creepy places, with very bumpy roads. Even though the view wasn't anything mesmerizing, all I had to entertain myself was my music and looking out the window while picturing some music videos in my head, so that's what I did. For a very long and boring hour, all I did was look out the window and wonder how long it would take to reach our destination, yet out of nowhere I finally noticed something that was different from the rest. It was a relatively small farm with some cows walking around, yet there was no one in sight. That's when my dad asked me something pretty ordinary. "So, have you already told your friend that we will be visiting up north?" I gave him a short answer, simply saying that I had and that he wanted to meet me in person while I was staying there. My dad just nodded and kept driving. Not even 20 minutes later, the farm once more showed up from the side of the road. I was pretty confused, but because I wasn't paying attention to the road, I simply thought that my dad had taken a wrong turn and we had to drive by again. That's when he asked me the same exact question. "So, have you already told your friend that we will be visiting up north?" I was even more confused and gave him an even shorter answer, and he replied with the same exact nod. Feeling super odd about the situation, I decided to check out our location when the damn farm showed up again. We were already at a fairly long distance away from the last place I had seen the farm, and, you guessed it, my dad asked the same damn question for the 3rd time. I answered with a question of my own and asked if we were lost, to which he just said no and insisted on his first question as if I hadn't already answered it twice before. I just said yup because I was getting sort of scared at that point and was preparing myself to live that situation a 4th time, but it didn't happen. That haunted my mind, and I even told said friend what had happened. I told my dad I wanted him to drive by that same road when we got back home a week later, and the damn farm showed up once. I'm still super skeptical about it all, but that still bugs my mind when I think about it. Posted by user, Opathy. I broke my neck falling off a horse. When I was 19, I worked at an equestrian center as an exercise rider for one of the horses. I also did some of the usual tasks an employee would do, like mucking stalls and feeding horses, etc. A couple sessions after I started jumping for the first time, I ran through a course I'd never done before. My center of gravity was off, and I think my neck gave out when the horse dodged the jump really sharply, which resulted in me being thrown. I hit the ground at a very dangerous angle, my chest and chin slammed in and my back arched backwards, kind of what that ridiculousness show calls a scorpion or whatever. I heard a really loud snap and everything below my chin felt like it just sort of disappeared when my body settled awkwardly on my stomach. Obviously the owner of the equestrian center was screaming and someone else in the arena was trying to catch the horse so I didn't get trampled, but I just remember thinking, the one thing I've always been warned about just happened. Out of nowhere I felt some kind of very abrupt adjustment, sort of, and I was on my back moving my limbs with absolutely no pain in my chest or face. The wind wasn't even knocked out of me. The owner was still freaking out, but stared at me really confused when I stood up and asked to try it again. I went to see a doctor shortly after and he said judging by the bruising on my chest and chin, neck area I shouldn't ever have gotten up. If the fall didn't kill me I should have broken 3 vertebrae in my back and neck at the minimum. But he did some checks and tests and I was fine. No swelling, no bruising where the breaks should have been, just some bruising on my chest and neck, chin. I didn't even have a concussion or any damaged teeth from when my jaw slammed shut on impact. To this day I have no idea how it happened or why, but I know I'm very lucky because I felt it happen, and everyone saw me land on my front when I fell without rolling over before the weird shift feeling hit me. Posted by user, Rain Window Coffee. My husband and I both had a feeling I was gone. Okay, so I've had a few incidents in my life I'd consider glitches and this is one that I've been meaning to post here for a while. This happened about 3 or 4 years ago. So, my husband has a tendency to stay up late, playing Age of Empires or editing, etc., and I go to bed a lot earlier than him. Now I have anxiety, specifically OCD, and one common fear I've had since I was a teenager was the fear of dying in my sleep. So, occasionally, this intrusive thought that I might die in my sleep would get into my head and I'd just toss and turn, fighting sleep and worrying about that. So, this was one such night. I was alone in bed worrying, laying the Lyco_O, and my husband was up, in the other room, playing or whatever. Nothing strange so far. But then I was struck with a worry I'd never had before. Instead of if I fall asleep, I'll die. I thought I've already died. It's already happened. I'm dead. I'd never had this type of thought before but I just believed it so strongly for some reason. At first, I sort of waited for whatever was meant to happen next. Waiting to get escorted to the afterlife or whatever. Then I thought I should go out to the living room and say a final goodbye to my husband. I started thinking through what I would say, but thinking about that made me feel just overwhelmingly sentimental, and it was like I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was also just paralyzed by this utter conviction that if I got out of bed and looked back at the bed, I'd see my corpse. I was just so sure. I was so scared to see it. I started thinking, if I even turn the wrong way, or shift from my present position I might see it. So I just laid very still, shut my eyes, and silent tears poured out. And I fell asleep that way. Again, I'd had anxiety-ridden thoughts in the past, but this fresh hell was brand new. It's a sensation that's burned into my memory. In the morning I woke up, my husband lying next to me, and I felt relieved. Overjoyed. Because honestly, I had not at all expected to wake up in my bed again. Okay, nothing glitchy so far, though. Just the slightly diluted output of an admittedly flawed brain. But here's the weird part, and I swear to God this is true. My husband sleepily rolled over, looked at me, smiled, and said I missed you. Then closed his eyes again. I couldn't even fathom why he'd said such a seemingly fitting thing, since I hadn't told him anything about my previous night's phobia, delusion or whatever. Later, my husband woke up and joined me out in the kitchen, acting very warm and affectionate towards me. The first thing he says to me is, "It's the strangest thing. When I saw you this morning ... I had this weird feeling like I hadn't seen you in a really long time." The experience felt so real and so meaningful to me, I couldn't get it out of my head. I was inspired to write a short ghost story about a dead woman saying goodbye to her husband, based on the thoughts, fears I had while laying in bed that night. I don't know what I believe about it, but I think about these events from time to time, especially this time of year. I think I'll always think of it as something kind of weird or special that happened to me and my husband.